Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd get an opportunity to drive Lamborghini's Countach. Keep in mind, this is one of those hypercars of another generation, considerably analog, but still with some electronic aids for comfort and convenience. Most of everything else in this car, well, it's just pure manual. I'm nervous, I'm scared, because this is a very expensive car and I haven't driven something this epic in ages. But to me, this is a fairly emotional moment. I've been requesting Lamborghini for nearly 2 decades, and it's finally here. An opportunity to drive some of the most significant V12 powered cars in Lamborghini's history. This is epic on another scale entirely. Keep in mind, everything is manual. This is the LP400 I'm driving. It's got a manual 5-speed transmission, the steering is manual. It's got 3 pedals. This isn't a modern day automatic hypercar or supercar that Lamborghini makes. This comes from an entirely different generation. And the nice thing is, you can see where that whole aggressive nature of Lamborghini stems from. It's cars like the Countach that set the tone for all of their modern day supercars. And that aggression hasn't dimmed down at all. This isn't an easy car to drive. Keep in mind, we're so used to driving automatics these days. Getting a hold of a manual that puts out this amount of power, where you have got to control almost everything. People just stare at you with their mouths wide open. Fairly exciting car to drive. My mouth's gone dry. My heart's pounding. It's such an incredible car everywhere you go with the Countach. The Miura, as you know it, was effectively the car that put Lamborghini on the map. And to think that Ferruccio Lamborghini, well, may not have necessarily wanted this car, but it was Sanzani, Gandini, Bob Wallace who wanted to build a car that could reflect all the racing that was taking place around Italy at the time. And they did develop the Miura, and Ferruccio Lamborghini signed off on the car and allowed it to get into production. And the rest, as I say, is history. It's hard to believe that something like this was developed way back in 1960s, mid-engine V12 with a 5-speed manual transmission. Driving these cars is a very different experience because keep in mind, these aren't fuel injected, they're carbureted. And you have to keep the throttle on the boil for those carburetors to work. 12 cylinders of intoxication. I can smell the fuel. I can hear the engine. It's right behind my head. It's hard to believe this thing was built in the 60s. And as you can see, I'm really reaching out for the steering wheel here because this car was developed as a racing car. Though it eventually went into series production. And it's such a gorgeous shape. Right in front of your eyes, all you can see are these 2 big pontoon-shaped fenders. Let me tell you, it's not easy driving these things. But I've just driven the Countach and the Miura just seems so much nicer, so much easier. You know what's amazing me is that the ride quality on this car is just so magnificent. And today, nearly 70 years after this car was made, it boggles my mind to think just where is Lamborghini headed. I must look stupid because I just can't stop grinning. The car I'm driving just now, well, there's just one word to describe it: exquisite. I'm quite surprised why Lamborghini kind of moved away from the Grand Tourer classifications, went more aggressive with their sports cars and hypercars. Because the 400 GT that I'm driving just now is probably one of the grandest cars I've ever driven. Now, the 400 GT was the second car that Lamborghini introduced to the market. It followed the 350 GT, but continued with more or less the same mechanicals, the same V12 powertrain, the 3.9 litre V12, but was a better car than the 350 GT. The 400 GT is perhaps everything Ferruccio Lamborghini wanted from his cars. It was comfortable and it was fast and powerful, quite unlike modern day Lamborghinis, which are aggressive but fast and powerful. It's hard to imagine something this exquisite was built almost 80 years ago. It had a short production run. It went into production in 1966 and production discontinued in 1968. Roughly about 240 odd units were built of the 400 GT. And today these cars are priceless. But price aside, I'm quite astonished by the elegance, the superb engineering that went into a car of this order way back in the 60s. This is such an effortless car to drive. I could do this day in and day out. We've come down a very, very fast patch of tarmac. Of course, now this is far more twisty. The ride quality, the steering, the response from the engine is just magnificent. We were just barreling down a motorway a few minutes ago, and the 400 GT, well, I clocked about 160 kilometers an hour, and it felt like a Sunday. Smooth, easy, effortless. My God, this car is a gem. And now in the Murcielago, and this car was a significant car in Lamborghini's history again, because it marked the transition for Lamborghini from analog to, well, sort of electronically controlled cars. The Murcielago represented several firsts for Lamborghini. It was the first supercar to be developed in-house at Lamborghini's new facility, the Centro Stile. It was the first to have offered automatic transmission. It was the first to have a selectable reverse gear by pressing a button. It was the first Lamborghini to offer electronically adjustable suspension. It was the first Lamborghini to offer safety aids like traction control and ESC. It was the first Lamborghini to offer several new firsts, and in that way it became a huge milestone for Lamborghini. This has to be one of the most epic sounding cars I've driven all of today. Just listen to this. It sounds even sweeter than the Aventador. It sounds sweeter than the Countach. And it revs all the way up to 8,500 RPM, which is just incredible. This is such a mad car. Through the day, there's been several questions just floating around in my head. Can you drive a Lamborghini slow? Can you drive a Lamborghini and not get excited? Can you drive a Lamborghini and not feel the hair on every inch of your body stand in sheer delight? Can you drive a Lamborghini and not think about the million ways you could go and make money to buy you one? If there was ever a day that felt completely satisfying, this would be it. It nonetheless is still one of Lamborghini's most exciting cars to drive. and still remains one of the poster childs for Lamborghini that has, well, gone onto so many walls across the world. And just like the Murcielago was the spiritual successor to the Diablo, this epic supercar was followed by the Aventador. After all those gorgeous Lamborghinis, those classic V12s, I now find myself in the Aventador. And this car is significant for one reason. It is the last of the naturally aspirated V12s. The Aventador is the most modern V12 that Lamborghini has built. And it spells all the aggression, all the ferocity, all the pace and the might of Lamborghini's magnificent V12s that they've ever developed. The Aventador's V12 is still very much based on the original V12 design. This cabin and its design with its aircraft's cockpit-like controls, well, the design, it traces its origins back to the Countach, much like several other aspects of this car. And that is one of the aspects of Lamborghini's cars that I've truly enjoyed today. You see a continuity of all that Lamborghini has developed in each and every car. Over nearly 5 decades, starting off from the Countach, all the way up to the Aventador. This is a magnificent car to drive. It is truly special. It's something that will never ever be replicated again. And for that, it will have its moment in history. All of Lamborghini's V12 powered cars, given the nature, the physical size of those engine blocks, makes those cars large and wide. And here in Bologna's countryside, driving these cars is a bit intimidating. Ever since Lamborghini began operations way back in the 60s, 1963, with the 350 GT and subsequently the 400 GT and several of its V12 powered cars, each of them has been capable of ridiculous speeds for their time. Ever since a V12 has been put into a Lamborghini, the 400 GT that I drove today, speeds in excess of 200 kilometers an hour. Keep in mind, this was way back in the 60s, 200 kilometers an hour back then on those single ply tires. And now down to the Aventador, 300 kilometers plus in the blink of an eye. So of the 5 cars that I've driven today, which one would be my favorite? Well, that would be akin to asking me to pick my favorite child. I love the 400 GT because it's such a sublime grand tourer, such a gorgeous car, beautiful in every respect. The Miura, beautiful in every single respect, such a fabulous car. The Countach, angry, ferocious, and of course a lot of hard work too. But at the end of the day, the rewards with the Countach, unbelievable. The Murcielago, spanning 2 generations, that shift from analog to digital, is so nicely woven into the Murcielago. And then you have the Aventador, the absolute peak of Lamborghini's naturally aspirated V12. You can't pick one. I picked them all.